After great pain, a formal feeling comes, by Emily Dickinson, read for LibriVox.org by Penelope Greenwell on February 28, 2011. After great pain, a formal feeling comes. The nerves sit ceremonious like tombs. The stiff heart questions, was it he that bore? And yesterday or centuries before? The feet, mechanical, go round, of ground or air or aught, a wooden way regardless grown, a quartz contentment, like a stone. This is the hour of lead, remembered, if outlived, as freezing persons recollect the snow. First chill, then stupor, then the letting go. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
A Western Voyage by James Elroy Flecker. Read for LibriVox.org by Algy Pug. A Western Voyage. My friend the sun, like all my friends, inconstant, lovely, far away, is out and bright, and condescends to glory in our holiday. A furious march with him I'll go, and race him in the western train, and wake the hills of long ago, and swim the Devon Sea again. I have done foolishly to head the footway of the false moonbeams, to light my lamp and call the dead, and read their long black printed dreams. I have done foolishly to dwell with fear upon her desert isle, to take my shadowgraph to hell, and then to hope the shades would smile. And since the light must fail me soon, but faster, faster, western train, proud meadows of the afternoon, I have remembered you again. And I'll go seek, through moor and dale, a flower that wastrel winds caress. The bud is red, and the leaves pale. The name of it? Forgetfulness. Then, like the old and happy hills with frozen veins and fires outrun, I'll wait the day when darkness kills my brother and good friend, the sun. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Ballad of the Hyde Street Grip by Gillette Burgess. Read for LibriVox.org by Winston Tharp. A San Francisco Rhapsody. Oh, the rain is slanting sharply and the norther's blowing cold. When the cable strands are loosened, she is nasty hard to hold. There's little time for sitting down and little time for gab, for the bumper guards the crossing and you'd best be keeping tab. 2 and 20 let-goes every double trip. It takes a bit of doing on the Hyde Street Grip. Throw her off at Powell Street, let her go at Post. Watch her well at Geary and at Sutter when you coast. Easy at the powerhouse, have a care at Clay, Sacramento, Washington, Jackson, all the way. Drop the rope at Union, never make a slip. The lever keeps you busy on the Hyde Street Grip. Foot brake, wheel brake, slot brake, and gong. You've got to keep 'em working or you'll soon be going wrong. Rush her on the crossing, catch her on the rise. Easy round the corners when the dust is in your eyes. And the bell will always stop you if you hit her up a clip. You're apt to earn your wages on the Hyde Street Grip. North Beach to Tenderloin, over Russian Hill, the grades are something giddy and the curves are fit to kill. All the way to Market Street, climbing up the slope, down upon the other side, hanging to the rope. But the sight of San Francisco as you take the lurchin' dip. There is plenty of excitement on the Hyde Street Grip. Oh, the lights are in the Mission, and the ships are in the bay, and Tamalpais is looming from the gate across the way. The Presidio trees are waving, and the hills are growing brown, and the driving fog is harried from the ocean to the town. How the pulleys snap and rattle, how the cables hum and whip. Oh, they sing a gallant chorus on the Hyde Street Grip. When the Orpheum is closin' and the crowd is on the way, the conductor's punch is ringin' and the dummies light and gay, but the wait upon the table by the beach is dark and still, just the swashing of the surges on the shore below the mill, and the flash of Angel Island breaks across the channel rip as the hush of midnight falls upon the Hyde Street Grip. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Ballad of Iskander by James Elroy Flecker. Read for LibriVox.org by Algy Pug. Note: Aflatun and Aristu and King Iskander are Plato, Aristotle, Alexander. Sultan Iskander sat him down on his golden throne in his golden crown, and shouted, "Wine and flute girls three, and the captain ho of my ships at sea." He drank his bowl of wine, he kept the flute girls dancing till they wept, praised and kissed their painted lips, and turned to the captain of all his ships, and cried, "O lord of my ships that go from the Persian Gulf to the pits of snow, inquire for men unknown to man." Said Sultan Iskander of Yunistan, "Darush is dead, and I am king of everywhere and everything, yet leagues and leagues away for sure the lion-hearted dream of war. Admiral, I command you sail. Take a ship of silver mail and 50 sailors, young and bold, and stack provision deep in the hold. And seek out 20 men that know all Babel tongues which flaunt and flow. And stay, impress those learned two, old Aflatun and Aristu. And set your prow south-western ways 1,000 bright and dimpling days, and find me lion-hearted lords with breasts to feed our rusting swords." The captain of the ships bowed low. "Sir," he replied, "I will do so." And down he rode to the harbour mouth to choose a boat to carry him south. And he launched a ship of silver mail, with 50 lads to hoist the sail, and 20 wise, all tongues they knew, and Aflatun and Aristu. They had not dawned the second day, but the glittering galleons sailed away, and through the night like one great bell the marshalled armies sang farewell. In 20 days the silver ship had passed the Isle of Serendip, and made the flat Araunian coasts inhabited at noon by ghosts. In 30 days the ship was far beyond the land of Calcobar, where men drink dead men's blood for wine, and dye their beards alizarine. But on the 100th day there came Storm with his windy wings aflame, and drave them out to that lone sea, whose shores are near eternity. For 7 years and 7 years sailed those forgotten mariners, nor could they spy on either hand the faintest level of good red land. Bird or fish they saw not one, there swam no ship beside their own, and day-night long the lilied deep lay round them with its flowers asleep. The beams began to warp and crack, the silver plates turned filthy black, and drooping down on the carven rails hung those once lovely silken sails. And all the great ship's crew, who were such noble lads to do and dare, grew old and tired of the changeless sky, and laid them down on the deck to die. And they, who spake all tongues there be, made antics with solemnity, or closely huddled each to each, talked ribald in a foreign speech. And Aflatun and Aristu let their beards grow, and their beards grew round and about the mainmast tree, where they stood still and watched the sea. And day by day their captain grey knelt on the rotting poop to pray, and yet despite 10,000 prayers they saw no ship that was not theirs. When thrice the 7 years had passed, they saw a ship at last. Untarnished glowed its silver mail, windless bellied its silken sail. With a shout the grizzled sailors rose, cursing the years of sick repose, and they who spake in tongues unknown gladly reverted to their own. The captain leapt and left his prayers, and hastened down the dust-dark stairs, and taking to hand a brazen whip, he woke to life the long-dead ship. But Aflatun and Aristu, who had no work that they could do, gazed at the stranger ship and sea, with their beards around the mainmast tree. Nearer and nearer the new boat came, till the hands cried out on the old ship's shame, Silken sail to a silver boat, we too shone when we first set float. Swifter and swifter the bright boat sped, but the hands spake thin like men long dead. How striking like that boat were we in the days, sweet days when we put to sea. The ship all black and the ship all white met like the meeting of day and night, met, and there lay serene dark green a twilight yard of the sea between. And the 20 masters of foreign speech, of every tongue they knew, tried each. Smiling the silver captain heard, but shook his head and said no word. Then Aflatun and Aristu addressed the silver lord anew, speaking their language of Unistan, like countryman to a countryman. And "Whence," they cried, "O sons of pride, sail you the dark eternal tide? Lie your halls to the south or north? And who is the king that sent you forth?" "We live," replied that lord with a smile, "a mile beyond the millionth mile. We know not south and we know not north, and Sultan Iskander sent us forth." Said Aristu to Aflatun, "Surely our king, despondent soon, has sent this second ship to find unconquered tracts of humankind." But Aflatun turned round on him, laughing a bitter laugh and grim. "Alas," he said, "O Aristu, a white, weak, thin old fool are you. And does yon silver ship appear as she had journeyed 20 year? And has that silver captain's face a mortal or immortal grace? Theirs is the land, as well I know, where live the shapes of things below. Theirs is the country where they keep the images men see in sleep. Theirs is the land beyond the door, and theirs the old ideal shore. They steer our ship, behold our crew ideal, and our captain too. And lo, beside that mainmast tree, 2 tall and shining forms I see, and they are what we ought to be, yet we are they, and they are we." He spake, and some young zephyr stirred. The 2 ships touched, no sound was heard. The black ship crumbled into air, only the phantom ship was there. And a great cry rang round the sky of glorious singers sweeping by, and calm and fair on waves that shone the silver ship sailed on and on. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Barter by Sarah Teasdale. Read for LibriVox.org by Heather Phillips. Life has loveliness to sell, all beautiful and splendid things, blue waves whitened on a cliff, soaring fire that sways and sings, and children's faces looking up, holding wonder like a cup. Life has loveliness to sell, music like a curve of gold, scent of pine trees in the rain, eyes that love you, arms that hold, and for your spirit's still delight, holy thoughts that star the night. Spend all you have for loveliness, buy it and never count the cost. For one white singing hour of peace, count many a year of strife well lost. And for a breath of ecstasy, give all you have been or could be. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Chicago by Carl Sandburg. Read for LibriVox.org by Richard Kilmer, Rio Medina, Texas. Chicago. Hog butcher for the world, toolmaker, stacker of wheat, player with railroads and the nation's freight handler, stormy, husky, brawling, city of the big shoulders. They tell me you are wicked, and I believe them, for I have seen your painted women under the gas lamps, luring the farm boys. And they tell me you are crooked, and I answer, yes, it is true, I have seen the gunmen kill and go free to kill again. And they tell me you are brutal, and my reply is, on the faces of women and children I have seen the marks of wanton hunger. And having answered so, I turn once more to those who sneer at this my city, and I give them back the sneer, and say to them, come and show me another city with lifted heads singing, so proud to be alive and coarse and strong and cunning, flinging magnetic curses amid the toil of piling job on job. Here is a tall, bold slugger set vivid against the little soft cities. Fierce as a dog with tongue lapping for action, cunning as a savage pitted against the wilderness, bareheaded, shoveling, wrecking, planning, building, breaking, rebuilding. Under the smoke, dust all over his mouth, laughing with white teeth. Under the terrible burden of destiny, laughing as a young man laughs, laughing even as an ignorant fighter laughs who has never lost a battle, bragging and laughing that under his wrist is the pulse, under his ribs the heart of the people, laughing. Laughing the stormy, husky, brawling laughter of youth, half naked, sweating, proud to be hog butcher, tool maker, stacker of wheat, player with railroads, and freight handler to the nation. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Cricket and Baseball by William F. Kirk. Read for LibriVox.org by Lars, Rolander. The cricket game was over and the sun was sinking low. The players in their blazers plodded homeward in a row. They stopped within the clubhouse for a final cup of tea, when up spake Captain Edgerton to bowler Basil Fee. "Jolly well tried, old chap. You lost as the greatest can. But whether you win or whether you lose, you're always a gentleman. Have a Scotch and soda, old fellow. It will drive off the blooming blues. Keep up your stride, you jolly well tried, and a man can't always lose." The baseball game was over, and the home team had been skinned. The players slunk across the field, while sundry knockers grinned. They hurried to the clubhouse for a bath and a change of garb, when up spake Manager Macduff, and each word was a barb. "Fine lot of high-priced athletes. Most of you ain't alive. I could pick a team from the Soldiers' Home and beat you 4 out of 5. Be out here at 10 tomorrow. That goes the way that it lays. Any Mixdale sport that doesn't report will squat on the bench 10 days. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Darkness by Lord Byron. Read for LibriVox.org by MorganScorpion. I had a dream, which was not all a dream. The bright sun was extinguished, and the stars did wander darkling in the eternal space, rayless and pathless, and the icy earth swung blind and blackening in the motionless air. Morn came, and went, and came, and brought no day, and men forgot their passions in the dread of this desolation, and all hearts were chilled into a selfish prayer for light. And they did live by watchfires, and the thrones, the palaces of crowned kings, the huts, the habitations of all things which dwell, were burnt for beacons. Cities were consumed, and men were gathered round their blazing homes, to look once more into each other's face. Happy were those who dwelt within the eye of the volcanoes and their mountain torch. A fearful hope was all the world contained. Forests were set on fire, but hour by hour they fell and faded, and the crackling trunks extinguished with a crash, and all was black. The brows of men by the despairing light wore an unearthly aspect, as by fits the flashes fell upon them. Some lay down and hid their eyes and wept, and some did rest their chins upon their clenched hands and smiled, and others hurried to and fro, and fed their funeral piles with fuel, and looked up with mad disquietude on the dull sky, the pall of a past world, and then again with curses cast them down upon the dust, and gnashed their teeth, and howled. The wild birds shrieked, and, terrified, did flutter on the ground and flap their useless wings. The wildest brutes came tame and tremulous, and vipers crawled and twined themselves among the multitude. Hissing, but stingless, they were slain for food. And war, which for a moment was no more, did glut himself again. A meal was bought with blood, and each sate sullenly apart, gorging himself in gloom. No love was left. All earth was but one thought, and that was death, immediate and inglorious. And the pang of famine fed upon all entrails. Men died, and their bones were tombless as their flesh. The meagre by the meagre were devoured. Even dogs assailed their masters, all saved one, and he was faithful to a corpse, and kept the birds and beasts and famished men at bay, till hunger clung them, or the dropping dead lured their lank jaws. Himself sought no food, but with a piteous and perpetual moan, and a quick desolate cry, licking the hand which answered not with a caress, he died. The crowd was famished by degrees, but 2 of an enormous city did survive, and they were enemies. They met beside the dying embers of an altar place, where had been heaped a mass of holy things for an unholy usage. They raked up, and shivering scraped with their cold skeleton hands the feeble ashes, and their feeble breaths blew for a little life, and made a flame which was a mockery. Then they lifted up their eyes as it grew lighter, and each other's aspects, saw and shrieked, and died, beheld even of their mutual hideousness they died, unknowing who he was upon whose brow famine had written fiend. The world was void, the populous and the powerful was a lump, seasonless, herbless, treeless, manless, lifeless, a lump of death, a chaos of hard clay. The rivers, lakes, and oceans stood still, and nothing stirred within their silent depths. Ships sailorless lay rotting on the sea, and their masts fell down piecemeal. As they dropped, they slept on the abyss without a surge. The waves were dead. The tides were in their grave. The moon, their mistress, had expired before. The winds were withered in the stagnant air, and the clouds perished. Darkness had no need of aid from them. She was the universe. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Deacon's Masterpiece by Oliver Wendell Holmes. Read for LibriVox.org by James Christopher. jxchristopher@yahoo.com. Have you heard of the wonderful one-hoss shay that was built in such a logical way it ran for 100 years to a day? And then, of a sudden, but stay, I'll tell you what happened without delay, scaring the parson into fits, frightening people out of their wits. Have you ever heard of that, I say? 1755. Georgius Secundus was then alive, stuffy old drone from the German hive. That was the year when Lisbon town saw the earth open and gulp her down, and Braddock's army was done so brown, left without a scalp to its crown. It was on the terrible earthquake day that the Deacon finished the one-hoss shay. Now in building of chaises, I tell you what, there is always somewhere a weakest spot. In hub, tire, felloe, in spring or thill, in panel or crossbar or floor or sill. In screw, bolt, thoroughbrace lurking still, find it somewhere you must and will, above or below, or within or without, and that's the reason, beyond a doubt, a chaise breaks down, but doesn't wear out. But the Deacon swore, as deacons do, with an I do vum or an I tell you, he would build one shay to beat the town, in the country and all the country round. It should be so built that it couldn't break down. For, said the Deacon, 'tis mighty plain, that the weakest place must stand the strain. And the way to fix it, as I maintain, is only just to make that place as strong as the rest. So the Deacon inquired of the village folk where he could find the strongest oak, that couldn't be split, nor bent, nor broke. That was for spokes, and floor and sills. He sent for lacewood to make the fills. The crossbars were ash from the straightest trees, the panels of white wood that cuts like cheese, but last like iron for things like these. The hubs of logs from the settler's ellum, last of its timber, they couldn't sell 'em. Never an axe had seen their chips, and the wedges flew from between their lips, their blunt ends frizzled like celery tips. Step and prop iron, bolt and screw, spring, tire, axle, and linchpin too, steel of the finest, bright and blue. Thoroughbrace, bison skin, thick and wide, top boot dasher from tough old Hyde, found in the pit when the tanner died. That was the way he put her through. "There," said the Deacon, "now she'll do." Do, I tell you, I father guess, she was a wonder and nothing less. Colts grew horses, beards turned gray, Deacon and Deaconess dropped away. Children and grandchildren, where were they? But there stood the stout old one-hoss shay, as fresh as on Lisbon earthquake day. 1800 it came and found the Deacon's masterpiece strong and sound. 1800 increased by 10, handsome carriage they called it then. 1820 came, running as usual, much the same. 30 and 40 at last arrive, and then come 50 and 55. Little of all we value here wakes on the morn of its 100th year, without both feeling and looking queer. In fact, there's nothing that keeps its youth, so far as I know, but a tree and truth. This is a moral that runs at large. Take it, you're welcome, no extra charge. 1st of November, the earthquake day. There are traces of age in the one-hoss shay. A general flavor of mild decay, but nothing local as one might say. There couldn't be, for the Deacon's art had made it so like in every part that there wasn't a chance for one to start. For the wheels were just as strong as the thills, and the floor was just as strong as the sills, and the panels just as strong as the floor, and the whippletree neither less nor more, and the back crossbar as strong as the fore, and spring and axle and hub encore, and yet, as a whole, it is past a doubt, in another hour it will be worn out. 1st of November, 55. This morning the parson takes a drive. Now, small boys, get out of the way. Here comes the wonderful one-hoss shay, drawn by a rat-tailed ewe-neck bay. "Hut up," said the parson. Off went they. The parson was working his Sunday text. He had got to 5thly and stopped perplexed at what the Moses was coming next. All at once the horse stood still, close by the meetin' house on the hill. First a shiver, and then a thrill. Then something decidedly like a spill, and the parson was sitting upon a rock at 9:30 by the meetin' house clock, just the hour of the earthquake shock. What do you think the parson found when he got up and stared around? The poor old shay in a heap or mound, as if it had been to the mill and ground. You see, of course, if you're not a dunce, how it went to pieces all at once and nothing first, just as bubbles do when they burst. End of the wonderful one-hoss shay. Logic is logic. That's all I say. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Death of an Infant by Lydia H. Sigourney, read for LibriVox.org by Penelope Greenwell of Lexington, Kentucky on March 5, 2011. Death found strange beauty on that cherub brow, and dashed it out. There was a tint of rose on cheek and lip. He touched the veins with ice, and the rose faded. Forth from those blue eyes there spoke a wishful tenderness, a doubt whether to grieve or sleep, which innocence alone can wear. With ruthless haste he bound the silken fringes of the curtaining lids forever. There had been a murmuring sound with which the babe would claim its mother's ear, charming her even to tears. The spoiler set his seal of silence. But there beamed a smile so fixed and holy from that marble brow, Death gazed and left it there. He dared not steal the signet ring of heaven. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Fog by Carl Sandburg. Read for LibriVox.org by Richard Kilmer, Rio Medina, Texas. Fog. The fog comes on little cat feet. It sits looking over harbor and city on silent haunches, and then moves on. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Goblin Market by Christina Rossetti. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. Reading by LizMourant. Morning and evening, maids heard the goblins cry, "Come buy our orchard fruits, come buy, come buy! Apples and quinces, lemons and oranges, plump unpecked cherries, melons and raspberries, bloom down-cheeked peaches, swart-headed mulberries, wild freeborn cranberries, crab-apples, dewberries, pineapples, blackberries, apricots, strawberries, all ripe together, in summer weather, morns that pass by, fair eves that fly. Come buy, come buy, our grapes fresh from the vine, pomegranates full and fine, dates and sharp bullaces, rare pears and green gages, damsons and bilberries, taste them and try, currants and gooseberries, bright fire like barberries, figs to fill your mouth, citrons from the south, sweet to tongue and sound to eye. Come buy, come buy. Evening by evening, among the brookside rushes, Laura bowed her head to hear, Lizzie veiled her blushes, crouching close together in the cooling weather, with clasping arms and cautioning lips, with tingling cheeks and finger-tips. Lie close, Laura said, pricking up her golden head. We must not look at goblin men, we must not buy their fruits. Who knows upon what soil they fed their hungry, thirsty roots? Come buy, called the goblins, hobbling down the glen. Oh, cried Lizzie, Laura, Laura, you should not peep at goblin men. Lizzie covered up her eyes, covered close lest they should look. Laura reared her glossy head, and whispered like the restless brook, Look, Lizzie, look, Lizzie, down the glen tramp little men. One hauls a basket, one bears a plate, one lugs a golden dish of many pounds weight. How fair the vine must grow, whose grapes are so luscious! How warm the wind must blow through those fruit bushes! No, said Lizzie, no, no, no. Their offers should not charm us, their evil gifts would harm us. She thrust a dimpled finger in each ear, shut eyes and ran. Curious Laura chose to linger, wondering at each merchant man. One had a cat's face, one whisked a tail, one tramped at a rat's pace, one crawled like a snail, one like a wombat prowled obtuse and furry, one like a rattle tumbled hurry-scurry. She heard a voice like voice of doves, cooing all together. They sounded kind and full of loves in the pleasant weather. Laura stretched her gleaming neck, like a rush-embedded swan, like a lily from the beck, like a moonlit poplar branch, like a vessel at the launch, when its last restraint is gone. Backwards up the mossy glen turned and trooped the goblin men, with their shrill repeated cry, Come buy, come buy. When they reached where Laura was, they stood stock still upon the moss, leering at each other, brother with queer brother, signalling each other, brother with sly brother. One set his basket down, one reared his plate, one began to weave a crown of tendrils, leaves, and rough nuts brown. Men sell not such in any town. One heaved the golden weight of dish and fruit to offer her. Come buy, was still their cry. Laura stared, but did not stir, longed, but had no money. The whisk-tailed merchant bade her taste, in tones as smooth as honey. The cat-faced purred, the rat-faced spoke a word of welcome, and the snail-paced even was heard. One parrot-voiced and jolly cried pretty goblin still for pretty Polly. One whistled like a bird. But sweet-toothed Laura spoke in haste. Good folk, I have no coin to take were to purloin. I have no copper in my purse, I have no silver either, and all my gold is on the furze that shakes in windy weather above the rusty heather. You have much gold upon your head, they answered all together. Buy from us with a golden curl. She clipped a precious golden lock, she dropped a tear more rare than pearl, then sucked their fruit globes fair or red, sweeter than honey from the rock, stronger than man-rejoicing wine, clearer than water flowed that juice. She never tasted such before, how should it cloy with length of use? She sucked and sucked and sucked the more, fruits which that unknown orchard bore. She sucked until her lips were sore, then flung the emptied rinds away, but gathered up one kernel stone, and knew not was it night or day, as she turned home alone. Lizzie met her at the gate, full of wise upbraidings. Dear, you should not stay so late. Twilight is not good for maidens. Should not loiter in the glen, in the haunts of goblin men. Do you not remember Jeanie, how she met them in the moonlight, took their gifts both choice and many, ate their fruits and wore their flowers, plucked from bowers where summer ripens at all hours? But ever in the moonlight she pined and pined away, sought them by night and day, found them no more, but dwindled and grew grey, then fell with the first snow, while to this day no grass will grow where she lies low. I planted daisies there a year ago, that never blow. You should not loiter so. Nay, hush, said Laura. Nay, hush, my sister. I ate and ate my fill, yet my mouth waters still. Tomorrow night I will buy more, and kissed her. Have done with sorrow. I'll bring you plums tomorrow, fresh on their mother twigs, cherries worth getting. You cannot think what figs my teeth have met in, what melons icy cold, piled on a dish of gold, too huge for me to hold, what peaches with a velvet nap, pellucid grapes without one seed. Odorous indeed must be the mead whereon they grow, and pure the wave they drink, with lilies at the brink, and sugar sweet their sap. Golden head by golden head, like two pigeons in one nest, folded in each other's wings, they lay down in their curtained bed, like two blossoms on one stem, like two flakes of new-fallen snow, like two wands of ivory, tipped with gold for awful kings. Moon and stars gazed in at them, winds sang to them lullaby, lumbering owls forbore to fly, not a bat flapped to and fro round their rest, cheek to cheek and breast to breast, locked together in one nest. Early in the morning, when the first cock crowed his warning, neat like bees, as sweet and busy, Laura rose with Lizzie, fetched in honey, milked the cows, aired and set to rights the house, kneaded cakes of whitest wheat, cakes for dainty mouths to eat, next churned butter, whipped up cream, fed their poultry, sat and sewed, talked as modest maidens should, Lizzie with an open heart, Laura in an absent dream, one content, one sick in part, one warbling for the mere bright day's delight, one longing for the night. At length slow evening came. They went with pitchers to the reedy brook, Lizzie most placid in her look, Laura most like a leaping flame. They drew the gurgling water from its deep, Lizzie plucked purple and rich golden flags, then turning homeward said, "The sunset flushes those furthest loftiest crags. Come, Laura, not another maiden lags, no wilful squirrel wags, the beasts and birds are fast asleep." But Laura loitered still among the rushes, and said the bank was steep, and said the hour was early still, the dew not fallen, the wind not chill, listening ever, but not catching the customary cry, "Come buy, come buy," with its iterated jingle of sugar-baited words, not for all her watching once discerning even one goblin, racing, whisking, tumbling, hobbling, let alone the herds that used to tramp along the glen, in groups or single, of brisk fruit merchant men, till Lizzie urged, "O Laura, come, I hear the fruit call, but I dare not look. You should not loiter longer at this brook. Come with me home. The stars rise, the moon bends her arc, each glowworm winks her spark. Let us get home before the night grows dark, for clouds may gather, though this is summer weather. Put out the lights and drench us through, then if we lost our way, what should we do?" Laura turned cold as stone, to find her sister heard that cry alone, that goblin cry, "Come buy our fruits, come buy." Must she then buy no more such dainty fruit? Must she no more such succous pasture find? Gone deaf and blind? Her tree of life drooped from the root. She said not one word in her heart's sore ache, but peering through the dimness, naught discerning, trudged home, her pitcher dripping all the way, so crept to bed and lay silent till Lizzie slept, then sat up in a passionate yearning, and gnashed her teeth for balked desire, and wept as if her heart would break. Day after day, night after night, Laura kept watch in vain, in sullen silence of exceeding pain. She never caught again the goblin cry, "Come buy, come buy." She never spied the goblin men hawking their fruits along the glen. But when the noon waxed bright, her hair grew thin and grey. She dwindled as the fair full moon doth turn to swift decay and burn her fire away. One day, remembering her kernel stone, she set it by a wall that faced the south, dewed it with tears, hoped for a root, watched for a waking shoot, but there came none. It never saw the sun. It never felt the trickling moisture run, while with sunk eyes and faded mouth she dreamed of melons as a traveller sees false waves in desert drouth, with shade of leaf-crowned trees, and burns the thirstier in the sandful breeze. She no more swept the house, tended the fowls or cows, fetched honey, kneaded cakes of wheat, brought water from the brook, but sat down listless in the chimney nook, and would not eat. Tender Lizzie could not bear to watch her sister's cankerous care, yet not to share. She night and morning caught the goblin's cry, "Come buy our orchard fruits, come buy, come buy." Beside the brook, along the glen, she heard the tramp of goblin men. The voice and stir poor Laura could not hear, longed to buy fruit to comfort her, but feared to pay too dear. She thought of Jeannie in her grave, who should have been a bride, but who for joy's bride's hope to have, fell sick and died, in her gay prime, in earliest winter time, with the first glazing rime, with the first snowfall of crisp winter time, till Laura dwindling seemed knocking at death's door. Then Lizzie weighed no more better and worse, but put a silver penny in her purse, kissed Laura, crossed the heath with clumps of firs, at twilight halted by the brook, and for the first time in her life began to listen and look. Laughed every goblin when they spied her peeping, came toward her hobbling, flying, running, leaping, puffing and blowing, chuckling, clapping, crowing, clucking and gobbling, mopping and mowing, full of airs and graces, pulling wry faces, demure grimaces, cat-like and rat-like, rattle and wombat-like, snail-paced in a hurry, parrot-voiced and whistler, helter-skelter, hurry-scurry, chattering like magpies, fluttering like pigeons, gliding like fishes, hugged her and kissed her, squeezed and caressed her, stretched up their dishes, panniers and plates, look at our apples, russet and dun, bob at our cherries, bite at our peaches, citrons and dates, grapes for the asking, pears red with basking, out in the sun, plums on their twigs, pluck them and suck them, pomegranates, figs. Good folk, said Lizzie, mindful of Jeanie, give me much and many, held out her apron, tossed them her penny. Nay, take a seat with us, honour and eat with us, they answered grinning. Our feast is but beginning. Night yet is early, warm and dew-pearly, wakeful and starry. Such fruits as these no man can carry. Half their bloom would fly, half their dew would dry, half their flavour would pass by. Sit down and feast with us. Be welcome guest with us. Cheer you and rest with us. Thank you, said Lizzie, but one waits at home alone for me, so without further parleying, if you will not sell me any of your fruits though much and many, give me back my silver penny I tossed you for a fee. They began to scratch their pates, no longer wagging, purring, but visibly demurring, grunting and snarling. One called her proud, cross-grained, uncivil, their tones waxed loud, their looks were evil. Lashing their tails, they trod and hustled her, elbowed and jostled her, clawed with their nails, barking, mewing, hissing, mocking, tore her gown and soiled her stocking, twitched her hair out by the roots, stamped upon her tender feet, held her hands and squeezed their fruits against her mouth to make her eat. White and golden Lizzie stood, like a lily in a flood, like a rock of blue-veined stone, lashed by tides obstreperously, like a beacon left alone in a hoary roaring sea, sending up a golden fire, like a fruit-crowned orange tree, white with blossoms honey-sweet, sore beset by wasp and bee, like a royal virgin town, topped with gilded dome and spire, close beleaguered by a fleet, mad to tuck her standard down. One may lead a horse to water, 20 cannot make him drink. Though the goblins cuffed and caught her, coaxed and fought her, bullied and besought her, scratched her, pinched her black as ink, kicked and knocked her, mauled and mocked her, Lizzie uttered not a word, would not open lip from lip, lest they should cram a mouthful in, but laughed in heart to feel the drip of juice that syruped all her face, and lodged in dimples of her chin, and streaked her neck, which quaked like curd. At last the evil people, worn out by her resistance, flung back her penny, kicked their fruit along whichever road they took, not leaving root or stone or shoot. Some writhed into the ground, some dived into the brook with ring and ripple, some scudded on the gale without a sound, some vanished in the distance. In a smart ache tingle, Lizzie went her way, knew not was it night or day, sprang up the bank, tore through the furze, threaded copse and dingle, and heard her penny jingle, bouncing in her purse. Its bounce was music to her ear. She ran and ran as if she feared some goblin man dogged her with jibe or curse, or something worse. But not one goblin scurried after, nor was she pricked by fear. The kind heart made her windy paced, that urged her home quite out of breath with haste and inward laughter. She cried, "Laura!" up the garden. "Did you miss me? Come and kiss me. Never mind my bruises. Hug me, kiss me, suck my juices, squeezed from goblin fruits for you, goblin pulp and goblin dew. Eat me, drink me, love me, Laura, make much of me. For your sake I have braved the glen and had to do with goblin merchantmen." Laura started from her chair, flung her arms up in the air, clutched her hair. "Lizzie, Lizzie, have you tasted for my sake the fruit forbidden? Must your light like mine be hidden? Your young life like mine be wasted? Undone in mine undoing, and ruined in my ruin? Thirsty, cankered, goblin ridden?" She clung about her sister, kissed and kissed and kissed her. Tears once again refreshed her shrunken eyes, dropping like rain after long sultry drouth, shaking with anguish, fear, and pain. She kissed and kissed her with a hungry mouth. Her lips began to scorch. That juice was wormwood to her tongue. She loathed the feast. Writhing as one possessed, she leaped and sung, rent all her robe, and wrung her hands in lamentable haste, and beat her breast. Her locks streamed like the torch borne by a racer at full speed, or like the mane of horses in their flight, or like an eagle when she stems the light straight toward the sun, or like a caged thing freed, or like a flying flag when armies run. Swift fire spread through her veins, knocked at her heart, met the fire smouldering there, and overbore its lesser flame. She gorged on bitterness without a name. Ah, fool, to choose such part of soul-consuming care! Sense failed in the mortal strife, like the watch-tower of a town, which an earthquake shatters down, like a lightning-stricken mast, like a wind-uprooted tree, spun about, like a foam-topped waterspout, cast down headlong in the sea. She fell at last. Pleasure past and anguish past. Is it death, or is it life? Life out of death. That night long Lizzie watched by her, counted her pulses' flagging stir, felt for her breath, held water to her lips, and cooled her face with tears and fanning leaves. But when the first birds chirped about their eaves, and early reapers plodded to the place of golden sheaves and dew-wet grass, bowed in the morning winds so brisk to pass, and new buds with new day opened of cup-like lilies on the stream, Laura awoke as from a dream, laughed in the innocent old way, hugged Lizzie, but not twice or thrice. Her gleaming locks showed not one thread of grey. Her breath was sweet as May, and light danced in her eyes. Days, weeks, months, years afterwards, when both were wives, with children of their own, their mother hearts beset with fears, their lives bound up in tender lives, Laura would call the little ones, and tell them of her early prime, those pleasant days long gone, of not returning time, would talk about the haunted glen, the wicked quaint fruit merchant men, their fruits like honey to the throat, but poison in the blood. Men sell not such in any town. Would tell them how her sister stood in deadly peril to do her good, and win the fiery antidote. Then joining hands to little hands, would bid them cling together, for there is no friend like a sister, in calm or stormy weather, to cheer one on the tedious way, to fetch one if one goes astray, to lift one if one totters down, to strengthen whilst one stands. End of Goblin Market. Reading by LizMourant, Port Richey, Florida. LizMourant@gmail.com.
The Horse by Job, Chapter 39, verses 19 through 22, read for LibriVox.org by Anne Cook. The Horse. Hast thou given the horse strength? Hast thou clothed his neck with thunder? Canst thou make him afraid as a grasshopper? The glory of his nostrils is terrible. He paweth in the valley, and rejoiceth in his strength. He goeth on to meet the armed men. He mocketh at fear, and is not affrighted, neither turneth he back from the sword. End of The Horse. This recording is in the public domain.
How Can I Keep from Singing? By Anna Bartlett Warner and Doris Plen. Read for LibriVox.org by Winston Tharp. My life goes on an endless song above earth's lamentations. I hear the real, though far-off, hymn that hails a new creation. Through all the tumult and the strife, I hear its music ringing. It sounds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing? While though the tempest loudly roars, I hear the truth, it liveth. And though the darkness round me close, songs in the night it giveth. No storm can shake my inmost calm while to that rock I'm clinging. Since love is Lord of heaven and earth, how can I keep from singing? When tyrants tremble in their fear and hear their death knell ringing, when friends rejoice both far and near, how can I keep from singing? In prison cell and dungeon vile our thoughts to them are winging. When friends by shame are undefiled, how can I keep from singing? End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
I Know Not Why by Morris Rosenfeld, read for LibriVox.org by Leonard Wilson of Springfield, Ohio, February 2011. I lift mine eyes against the sky, the clouds are weeping, so am I. I lift mine eyes again on high, the sun is smiling, so am I. Why do I smile? Why do I weep? I do not know, it lies too deep. I hear the winds of autumn sigh, they break my heart, they make me cry. I hear the birds of lovely spring, my hopes revive, I help them sing. Why do I sing? Why do I cry? It lies so deep, I know not why. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Lady of Shalott by Alfred Lord Tennyson. Read for LibriVox.org by Prachi Pendse. Part 1. On either side the river lie long fields of barley and of rye, that clothe the wold and meet the sky, and through the field the road runs by to many-towered Camelot, and up and down the people go, gazing where the lilies blow, round an island there below, the island of Shalott. Willows whiten, aspens quiver, little breezes dusk and shiver, through the wave that runs forever, by the island in the river, flowing down to Camelot. 4 grey walls and 4 grey towers overlook a space of flowers, and the silent isle embowers the Lady of Shalott. By the margin, willow-veiled, slide the heavy barges trailed by slow horses, and unhailed the shallop flitteth silken-sailed, skimming down to Camelot. But who hath seen her wave her hand, or at the casement seen her stand, or is she known in all the land, the Lady of Shalott? Only reapers reaping early, in among the bearded barley, hear a song that echoes cheerly from the river winding clearly down to towered Camelot. And by the moon the reaper weary, piling sheaves in uplands airy, listening whispers 'tis the fairy Lady of Shalott. Part II. There she weaves by night and day a magic web with colours gay. She has heard a whisper say, a curse is on her if she stay to look down to Camelot. She knows not what the curse may be, and so she weaveth steadily, and little other care hath she, the Lady of Shalott. And moving through a mirror clear that hangs before her all the year, shadows of the world appear. There she sees the highway near, winding down to Camelot. There the river eddy whirls, and there the surly village churls, and the red cloaks of market girls pass onward from Shalott. Sometimes a troop of damsels glad, an abbot on an ambling pad, sometimes a curly shepherd lad, or long-haired page in crimson clad, goes by to towered Camelot. And sometimes through the mirror blue the knights come riding two and two. She hath no loyal knight and true, the Lady of Shalott. But in her web she still delights to weave the mirror's magic sights. For often through the silent nights a funeral with plumes and lights and music went to Camelot. Or when the moon was overhead came two young lovers lately wed. I am half sick of shadows, said the Lady of Shalott. Part III. A bowshot from her bower eaves, he rode between the barley sheaves. The sun came dazzling through the leaves, and flamed upon the brazen greaves of bold Sir Lancelot. A Red Cross knight for ever kneeled to a lady in his shield, that sparkled on the yellow field beside remote Shalott. The gemmy bridle glittered free, like to some branch of stars we see, hung in the golden galaxy. The bridle bells rang merrily as he rode down to Camelot. And from his blazoned baldric slung a mighty silver bugle hung, and as he rode his armour rung beside remote Shalott. All in the blue unclouded weather, thick jewelled shone the saddle leather. The helmet and the helmet feather burned like one burning flame together as he rode down to Camelot. As often through the purple night, below the starry clusters bright, some bearded meteor trailing light moves over still Shalott. His broad clear brow in sunlight glowed, on burnished hooves his war-horse trode, from underneath his helmet flowed his coal-black curls as on he rode down to Camelot. From the bank and from the river he flashed into the crystal mirror. Tirra-lirra by the river sang Sir Lancelot. She left the web, she left the loom, she made 3 paces through the room. She saw the water lily bloom, she saw the helmet and the plume. She looked down to Camelot. Out flew the web and floated wide, the mirror cracked from side to side. The curse is come upon me, cried the Lady of Shalott. Part IV. In the stormy east wind straining, the pale yellow woods were waning, the broad stream in his banks complaining, heavily the low sky raining over towered Camelot. Down she came and found a boat beneath a willow left afloat, and round about the prow she wrote, the Lady of Shalott. And down the river's dim expanse, like some bold seer in a trance, seeking all his own mischance, with a glassy countenance, did she look to Camelot. And at the closing of the day, she loosed the chain and down she lay. The broad stream bore her far away, the Lady of Shalott. Lying robed in snowy white, that loosely flew to left and right, the leaves upon her falling light, through the noises of the night, she floated down to Camelot. And as the boat head wound along, the willowy hills and fields among, they heard her singing her last song, the Lady of Shalott. Heard a carol, mournful, holy, chanted loudly, chanted lowly, till her blood was frozen slowly, and her eyes were darkened, wholly turned to towered Camelot. For ere she reached upon the tide the first house by the water side, singing in her song she died, the Lady of Shalott. Under tower and balcony, by garden wall and gallery, a gleaming shape she floated by, a course between the houses high, silent into Camelot. Out upon the wharves they came, knight and burgher, lord and dame, and round the prow they read her name, the Lady of Shalott. Who is this, and what is here? And in the lighted palace near died the sound of royal cheer, and they crossed themselves for fear, all the knights at Camelot. But Lancelot mused a little space. He said, "She has a lovely face. God in his mercy lend her grace, the Lady of Shalott." End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The League of Long Ago by William F. Kirk. Read for LibriVox.org by Lars, Rolander. The League of Long Ago. They've got me sitting on the bench. I knew it had to come. Kid Casey subbed for me a third the day I broke my thumb. My thumb got better fast enough, but when I wanted back, "The kid is dinging them a mile," says good old Captain Mack. "The kid is running bases like a Murray or a Cobb. The kid does this, the kid does that, the kid is on the job." And so I'm sitting on the bench, my spirits sort of low, and playing memory ball games in the League of Long Ago. I'm pulling for Kid Casey, and I hope he makes a mint. I help him every way I can, from cussword down to hint. He knows that I am for him. 'Twas only yesterday he says to me, "Old leaguer, you've got 10 more years to play." But I know that he knows better, and I know just what I'm worth. A man can't last forever in the swiftest game on earth. And so I'm sitting on the bench, my spirits sort of low. I'm playing memory ball games in the League of Long Ago. I played with old Buck Ewing just before Buck blew the game. I played with Jimmy Ryan in the days of Anson's fame. Then I was just a fresh young kid, and they were getting old. But not one slur they gave me when I broke into the fold. That's why I like Kid Casey, and I'll plug like sin for him. I told Mac only yesterday my eyes were getting dim. And so I'm sitting on the bench, my spirits sort of low, and playing memory ball games in the League of Long Ago. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Leap of Roushan Beg by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Read for LibriVox.org by Leonard Wilson of Springfield, Ohio. February 2011. Mounted on Kyrat, strong and fleet, his chestnut steed with 4 white feet, Roushan Beg, called Kuroglu, son of the road and bandit chief, seeking refuge and relief, up the mountain pathway flew. Such was Kyrat's wondrous speed, never yet could any steed reach the dust cloud in his course. More than maiden, more than wife, more than gold, and next to life, Roushan the robber loved his horse. In the land that lies beyond Erzeroum and Trebizond, garden-girt his fortress stood. Plundered Khan or caravan, journeying north from Kurdistan, gave him wealth and wine and food. 780 men-at-arms his livery wore, did his bidding night and day. Now, through regions all unknown, he was wandering, lost, alone, seeking without guide his way. Suddenly the pathway ends, sheer the precipice descends, loud the torrent roars unseen. 30 feet from side to side yawns the chasm, on air must ride he who crosses this ravine. Following close in his pursuit at the precipice's foot, Rayhan the Arab of Orpha halted with his 100 men, shouting upward from the glen, La ilaha illa Allah! Gently Roushan Beg caressed Kyrat's forehead, neck, and breast, kissed him upon both his eyes, sang to him in his wild way, as upon the topmost spray sings a bird before it flies. O my Kyrat, O my steed, round and slender as a reed, carry me this peril through. Satin housing shall be thine, shoes of gold, O Kyrat mine. O thou soul of Kurraglu! Soft thy skin as silken skein, soft as woman's hair thy mane, tender are thine eyes and true, all thy hoofs like ivory shine, polished bright. O life of mine, leap and rescue Kurraglu! Kyrat then, the strong and fleet, drew together his 4 white feet, paused a moment on the verge, measured with his eye the space, and into the air's embrace leaped as leaps the ocean surge. As the ocean surge o'er sand bears a swimmer safe to land, Kyrat safe his rider bore. Rattling down the deep abyss, fragments of the precipice rolled like pebbles on a shore. Roushan's tasseled cap of red trembled not upon his head. Careless sat he and upright, neither hand nor bridle shook, nor his head he turned to look, as he galloped out of sight. Flash of harness in the air, seen a moment like the glare of a sword drawn from its sheath. Thus the phantom horseman passed, and the shadow that he cast leaped the cataract underneath. Rayhan the Arab held his breath, while this vision of life and death passed above him. "Allahu!" cried he, "in all Kurdistan lives there not so brave a man as this robber Kurraglu." End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
A More Ancient Mariner by Bliss Carman, read for LibriVox.org by Cori Samuel. The swarthy bee is a buccaneer, a burly velveted rover, who loves the booming wind in his ear as he sails the seas of clover. A waif of the goblin pirate crew, with not a soul to deplore him, he steers for the open verge of blue, with the filmy world before him. His flimsy sails abroad on the wind are shivered with fairy thunder. On a line that sings to the light of his wings, he makes for the lands of wonder. He harries the ports of the hollyhocks, and levies on poor sweet briar. He drinks the whitest wine of phlox, and the rose is his desire. He hangs in the willows a night and a day, he rifles the buckwheat patches, then battens his store of pelf galore under the tautest hatches. He woos the poppy and weds the peach, inveigles daffodilly, and then like a tramp abandons each for the gorgeous Canada lily. There's not a soul in the garden world but wishes the day were shorter, when mariner bee puts out to sea with the wind in the proper quarter. Or so they say, but I have my doubts, for the flowers are only human, and the valour and gold of a vagrant bold were always dear to woman. He dares to boast, along the coast, the beauty of Highland heather, how he and she with night on the sea lay out on the hills together. He pilfers from every port of the wind, from April to golden autumn, but the thieving ways of his mortal days are those his mother taught him. His morals are mixed, but his will is fixed, he prospers after his kind, and follows an instinct compass sure the philosophers call blind. And that is why, when he comes to die, he'll have an easier sentence than some I know who thinks just so, and then leaves room for repentance. He could never box the compass round. He doesn't know port from starboard, but he knows the gates of the sundown straits, where the choicest goods are harboured. He could never see the rule of 3, but he knows a rule of thumb, better than Euclid's, better than yours, or the teacher's yet to come. He knows the smell of the hydromel, as if 2 and 2 were 5, and hides it away for a year and a day in his own hexagonal hive. Out in the day, haphazard, alone, booms the old vagrant hummer, with only his whim to pilot him through the splendid vast of summer. He steers and steers on the slant of the gale like the Fiend or Vanderdecken, and there's never an unknown course to sail but his crazy log can reckon. He drones along with his rough sea song and the throat of a salty tar. This devil may care till he makes his lair by the light of a yellow star. He looks like a gentleman, lives like a lord, and works like a Trojan hero, then loafs all winter upon his hoard, with the mercury at 0. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Mr. Apollinax by T.S. Eliot. Read for LibriVox.org by Loubet. When Mr. Apollinax visited the United States, his laughter tinkled among the teacups. I thought of Fragilion, that shy figure among the birch trees, and of Priapus in the shrubbery, gaping at the lady in the swing. In the palace of Mrs. Flaccus, at Professor Channing Cheetah's, he laughed like an irresponsible fetus. His laughter was submarine and profound, like the old man of the seats hidden under coral islands, where worried bodies of drowned men drift down in the green silence, dropping from fingers of surf. I looked for the head of Mr. Apollinax rolling under a chair, or grinning over a screen with seaweed in its hair. I heard the beat of Centaur's hoofs over the hard turf, as his dry and passionate talk devoured the afternoon. He is a charming man, but after all, what did he mean? He has pointed ears. He must be unbalanced. There was something he said that I might have challenged. Of Dowager Mrs. Flaccus and Professor and Mrs. Cheetah, I remember a slice of lemon and a bitten macaroon. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Non sum qualis eram, bonae sub regno cynarae. By Ernest Dowson. Read for LibriVox.org by Martin Geeson. Last night, yesternight, betwixt her lips and mine, there fell thy shadow, Cinera. Thy breath was shed upon my soul, between the kisses and the wine, and I was desolate and sick of an old passion. Yea, I was desolate, and bowed my head. I have been faithful to thee, Cinera, in my fashion. All night upon mine heart I felt her warm heart beat. Night long within mine arms, in love and sleep she lay. Surely the kisses of her bought red mouth were sweet. But I was desolate and sick of an old passion, when I awoke and found the dawn was grey. I have been faithful to thee, Cinera, in my fashion. I have forgot much, Cinera, gone with the wind, flung roses, roses riotously with the throng, dancing, to put thy pale lost lilies out of mind. But I was desolate and sick of an old passion, yea, all the time, because the dance was long. I have been faithful to thee, Cinera, in my fashion. I cried for madder music and for stronger wine, but when the feast is finished and the lamps expire, then falls thy shadow, Cinera, the night is thine, and I am desolate and sick of an old passion, yea, hungry for the lips of my desire. I have been faithful to thee, Cinera, in my fashion. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
On launching some bottles filled with knowledge into the Bristol Channel, by Percy Bysshe Shelley. Read for LibriVox.org by Amy Gramour. Vessels of heavenly medicine, may the breeze auspicious waft your dark green forms to shore. Safe may ye stem the wide surrounding roar of the wild whirlwinds and the raging seas. And oh, if Liberty e'er deign to stoop from yonder lowly throne her crownless brow, sure she will breathe around your emerald group the fairest breezes of her west that blow. Yes, she will waft ye to some free-born soul, whose eye-beam kindling as it meets your freight, her heaven-born flame in suffering earth will light, until its radiance gleams from pole to pole, and tyrant hearts with powerless envy burst, to see their night of ignorance dispersed. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Paul Revere's Ride, from the book Tales of a Wayside Inn by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. Recording by Thomas Blow. Listen, my children, and you shall hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere. On the 18th of April in '75, hardly a man is now alive who remembers that famous day and year. He said to his friend, "If the British march by land or sea from the town tonight, hang a lantern aloft in the belfry arch of the North Church tower as a signal light. One if by land and two if by sea. And I on the opposite shore will be ready to ride and spread the alarm through every Middlesex village and farm, for the country folk to be up and to arm." And he said, "Good night," and with muffled oar silently rowed to the Charlestown shore, just as the moon rose over the bay, where, swinging wide at her moorings, lay the Somerset, British man-of-war, a phantom ship, with each mast and spar across the moon like a prison bar, and a huge black hulk that was magnified by its own reflection in the tide. Meanwhile, his friend through alley and street wanders and watches with eager ears, till, in the silence around him, he hears the muster of men at the barrack door, the sound of arms, and the tramp of feet, and the measured tread of the grenadiers marching down to their boats on the shore. Then he climbed the tower of the old North Church, by the wooden stairs, with stealthy tread, to the belfry chamber overhead, and startled the pigeons from their perch on the sombre rafters that round him made masses and moving shapes of shade. By the trembling ladder, steep and tall, to the highest window in the wall, where he paused to listen and look down a moment on the roofs of the town, and the moonlight flowing over all. beneath. In the churchyard lay the dead, in their night encampment on the hill, wrapped in silence so deep and still that he could hear, like a sentinel's tread, the watchful night wind as it went creeping along from tent to tent, and seeming to whisper, "All is well." A moment only he feels the spell of the place and the hour, and the secret dread of the lonely belfry and the dead. For suddenly all his thoughts are bent on a shadowy something far away, where the river widens to meet the bay, a line of black that bends and floats on the rising tide like a bridge of boats. Meanwhile, impatient to mount and ride, booted and spurred, with a heavy stride on the opposite shore walked Paul Revere. Now he patted his horse's side, now he gazed at the landscape far and near, then impetuous stamped the earth, and turned and tightened his saddle girth. But mostly he watched with eager search the belfry tower of the old North Church, as it rose above the graves on the hill, lonely and spectral and somber and still. And lo, as he looks on the belfry's height, a glimmer, and then a gleam of light. He springs to the saddle, the bridle he turns, but lingers and gazes, till full on his sight a second lamp in the belfry burns. A hurry of hoofs in a village street, a shape in the moonlight, a bulk in the dark, and beneath from the pebbles in passing, a spark struck out by a steed flying fearless and fleet. That was all, and yet through the gloom and the light, the fate of a nation was riding that night, and the spark struck out by that steed in his flight kindled the land into flame with its heat. He has left the village and mounted the steep, and beneath him, tranquil and broad and deep, is the mystic meeting the ocean tides, and under the alders that skirt its edge, now soft on the sand, now loud on the ledge, is heard the tramp of his steed as he rides. It was 12 by the village clock when he crossed the bridge into Medford town. He heard the crowing of the cock and the barking of the farmer's dog, and felt the damp of the river fog that rises after the sun goes down. It was 1 by the village clock when he galloped into Lexington. He saw the gilded weathercock swim in the moonlight as he passed, and the meeting-house windows, black and bare, gaze at him with a spectral glare, as if they already stood aghast at the bloody work they would look upon. It was 2 by the village clock when he came to the bridge in Concord town. He heard the bleating of the flock and the twitter of the birds among the trees, and felt the breath of the morning breeze blowing over the meadow brown. And one was safe and asleep in his bed, who at the bridge would be first to fall, who that day would be lying dead, pierced by a British musket ball. You know the rest. In the books you have read, how the British regulars fired and fled, how the farmers gave them ball for ball from behind each fence and farmyard wall, chasing the redcoats down the lane, then crossing the fields to emerge again under the trees at the turn of the road, and only pausing to fire and load. So through the night rode Paul Revere, and so through the night went his cry of alarm to every Middlesex village and farm, a cry of defiance and not of fear. A voice in the darkness, a knock at the door, and a word that shall echo forevermore, for born on the night wind of the past, through all our history, to the last, in the hour of darkness and peril and need, the people will waken and listen to hear the hurrying hoof-beats of that steed and the midnight message of Paul Revere. That was Paul Revere's ride from the book Tales of a Wayside Inn by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow.
Started recording Chapter 1, Henry Van Dyke, The Red Flower. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Paul Robinson. The Red Flower, Henry Van Dyke, June 1914. In the pleasant time of Pentecost, by the little river Kill, I followed the angler's winding path, or waded the stream at will, and the friendly, fertile German land lay round me green and still. But all day long on the eastern bank of the river cool and clear, where the curving track of the double rails was hardly seen though near, the endless trains of German troops went rolling down to Trier. They packed the windows with bullet heads and caps of hodden gray. They laughed and sang and shouted loud when the trains were brought to a stay. They waved their hands and sang again as they went on their iron way. No shadow fell on the smiling land, no cloud arose in the sky. I could hear the river's quiet tune when the trains had rattled by, but my heart sank low with a heavy sense of trouble, I knew not why. Then came I into a certain field, where the devil's paintbrush spread, mid the grey and green of the rolling hills, a flaring splotch of red, an evil omen, a bloody sign, and a token of many dead. I saw in a vision the field-grey horde break forth at the devil's hour, and trample the earth into crimson mud, in the rage of the will to power. All this I dreamed in the valley of Kill, at the sign of the blood-red flower. End of recording. Chapter 1, Henry Van Dyke, The Red Flower. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Paul Robinson.
The Same Old Story by James Whitcomb Riley. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. Recording by Andrew Nance. The same old story told again. The maiden droops her head, the ripening glow of her crimson cheek is answering in her stead. The pleading tone of her trembling voice is telling her the way he loved her when his heart was young in youth's sunshiny day. The trembling tongue, the longing tone, imploringly ask why they cannot be as happy now as in days gone by. And two more hearts, tumultuous with overflowing joy, are dancing to the music which that dear provoking boy is twanging on his bowstring as, fluttering his wings, he sends his love-charged arrows, while merrily he sings, "Ho, ho, my dainty maiden, it surely cannot be you are thinking you are master of your heart, when it is me." And another gleaming arrow does the little god's behest, and the dainty little maiden falls upon her lover's breast. The same old story told again, and listened o'er and o'er, will still be new and pleasing too, till time shall be no more. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Second Coming by W.B. Yeats. Read for LibriVox.org by Jason Mills. turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart. The centre cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. Surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. The second coming! Hardly are those words out when a vast image out of Spiritus Mundi troubles my sight, a waste of desert sand, a shape with lion body and the head of a man, a gaze blank and pitiless as the sun, is moving its slow thighs, while all about it wind shadows of the indignant desert birds. The darkness drops again, but now I know that 20 centuries of stony sleep were vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle. And what rough beast, its hour come round at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born? End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Village Blacksmith by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Read for LibriVox.org by Robert Scheid. Under a spreading chestnut tree the village smithy stands. The smith, a mighty man is he, with large and sinewy hands, and the muscles of his brawny arms are strong as iron bands. His hair is crisp and black and long, his face is like the tan. His brow is wet with honest sweat, he earns whate'er he can, and looks the whole world in the face, for he owes not any man. Week in, week out, from morn till night, you can hear his bellows blow. You can hear him swing his heavy sledge with measured beat and slow, like a sexton ringing the village bell when the evening sun is low. And the children coming home from school look in at the open door. They love to see the flaming forge and hear the bellows roar, and catch the burning sparks that fly like chaff from a threshing floor. He goes on Sunday to the church and sits among his boys. He hears the parson pray and preach. He hears his daughter's voice singing in the village choir, and it makes his heart rejoice. It sounds to him like her mother's voice singing in paradise. He needs must think of her once more, how in the grave she lies, and with his hard, rough hand he wipes a tear out of his eyes. Toiling, rejoicing, sorrowing, onward through life he goes. Each morning sees some task begin, each evening sees it close. Something attempted, something done, has earned a night's repose. Thanks, thanks to thee, my worthy friend, for the lesson thou hast taught. Thus at the flaming forge of life our fortunes must be wrought. Thus on its sounding anvil shaped, each burning deed and thought. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
To Mary, on her objecting to the poem The Witch of Atlas, upon the score of its containing no human interest, by Percy Bysshe Shelley. Read for LibriVox.org by Amy Gramour. How, my dear Mary, are you critic bitten, for vipers kill though dead, by some review, that you condemn these verses I have written, because they tell no story, false or true? What, though no mice are caught by a young kitten, may it not leap and play as grown cats do? Till its claws come, prithee for this one time, content thee with a visionary rhyme. What hand would crush the silken winged fly, the youngest of inconstant April's minions, because it cannot climb the purest sky, where the swan sings amid the sun's dominions? Not thine, thou knowest 'tis its doom to die, when day shall hide within her twilight pinions the lucent eyes and the eternal smile, serene as thine, which lent it life awhile. To thy fair feet a winged vision came, whose date should have been longer than a day, and o'er thy head did beat its wings for fame, and in thy sight its fading plumes display. The watery bough burned in the evening flame, but the shower fell, the swift sun went his way, and that is dead. Oh, let me not believe that anything of mine is fit to live, Wordsworth informs us he was 19 years, considering and retouching Peter Bell, watering his laurels with the killing tears of slow dull care, so that their roots to hell might pierce, and their wide branches blot the spheres of heaven with dewy leaves and flowers. This well may be, for heaven and earth conspire to foil the over-busy gardener's blundering toil. My witch indeed is not so sweet a creature as Ruth or Lucy, whom his graceful praise clothes for our grandsons, but she matches Peter, though he took 19 years and she 3 days. In dressing, light the vest of flowing metre she wears, he proud as dandy with his stays, has hung upon his wiry limbs a dress like King Lear's looped and windowed raggedness. If you strip Peter, you will see a fellow scorched by hell's hyper-equatorial climate into a kind of sulphureous yellow, a lean mark hardly fit to fling a rhyme at. In shape a scaramouch, in hue a fellow. If you unveil my witch, no priest nor primate can shrive you of that sin, if sin there be, and love when it becomes idolatry. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Tom Van Arden by James Whitcomb Riley. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. Recorded by Andrew Nance. Tom Van Arden, my old friend, our warm fellowship is one far too old to comprehend. Where its bond first begun, mirage-like before my gaze, gleams of lands of other days, where two truant boys astray dream their lazy lives away. There's a vision in the guise of midsummer, where the past, like a weary beggar, lies in the shadow time has cast, and as blends the bloom of trees with a drowsy hum of bees, fragrant thoughts and murmurs blend. Tom Van Arden, my old friend. Tom Van Arden, my old friend, all the pleasures we have known thrill me now as I extend this old hand and grasp your own, feeling in the rude caress all affection's tenderness, feeling, though the touch be rough, our old souls are soft enough. So we'll make mellow hour. Fill your pipe and taste the wine. Wrap your face if it be sour. I can spare a smile from mine. If it sharpen your wit, let me feel the edge of it. I have eager ears to lend. Tom Van Arden, my old friend. Tom Van Arden, my old friend, are we lucky dogs indeed? Are we all we pretended in the jolly life we lead? Bachelors, we must confess, boast of a single blessedness to the world, but not alone. Man's best sorrow is his own. And the saddest truth is this: life to us has never proved what we tasted in the kiss of the woman we have loved. Vainly we congratulate our escape from such a fate, and as their lion lips could send, Tom Van Arden, my old friend. Tom Van Arden, my old friend, hearts like fruit upon the stem, ripe and sweetest, I contend. As the frost falls over them, your regard for me today makes November taste of May, and through every vein of rhyme pours the blood of summertime. When our souls are cramped with youth, happiness seems far away, and the future, while in the truth. We look back on it today, though our tears nor dare to boast. Better to have loved and lost. Broken hearts are hard to mend. Tom Van Arden, my old friend. Tom Van Arden, my old friend, I grow prosy, and you tire. Fill the glasses while I bend to prod up the failing fire. You are restless, I presume. There's a dampness in the room. Much of the warmth of our
nature begs with rheumatics in our legs. Humph, the legs we used to fling, limber-jointed in the dance, when we heard the fiddle ring upon the curtain of romance, and in the crowded public halls played with hearts like jugglers' balls. Feats of mountain backs depend. Tom Van Arden, my old friend. Tom Van Arden, my old friend, pardon then this theme of mine. While the firelight leaps to lend higher color to the wine, I propose a health to those whose homes and homes repose. Wife and child, love without end, Tom Van Arden, my old friend. End of poem. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain.
Vitae summa brevis spem nos vetat incoare longam, by Ernest Dowson, read for LibriVox.org by Martin Geeson. They are not long, the weeping and the laughter, love and desire and hate. I think they have no portion in us after we pass the gate. They are not long, the days of wine and roses. Out of a misty dream our path emerges for a while, then closes within a dream. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Oh, oh, you will be sorry for that word, by Edna St. Vincent Millay. Read for LibriVox.org by Heather Phillips. Oh, oh, you will be sorry for that word. Give back my book and take my kiss instead? Was it my enemy or my friend I heard? What a big book for such a little head! Come, I will show you now my newest hat, and you may watch me purse my mouth and prink. Oh, I shall love you still and all of that. I never again shall tell you what I think. I shall be sweet and crafty, soft and sly. You will not catch me reading any more. I shall be called a wife to pattern by, and some day, when you knock and push the door, some sane day, not too bright and not too stormy, I shall be gone, and you may whistle for me. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.